So g'day, and welcome to another Scott Poynton podcast. Haven't done one for a while. Getting geared up now though. Seems to be lots of things out there that warrant discussion, warrant being talked about. Climate change is top of the list for me. I've seen lots of things unfolding there over the last years, of course, and this has led to me kicking off the Pond Foundation and our My Carbon Zero program. I'll pop a link to that. It's mycarbonzero.org. Actually, I'll pop a link to that in the text below if you're interested to learn more. But it seems that people really struggle to take their own action on climate change. And when I look at what's happening in the world, look at what's happening in Canada at the moment, 49.6 degrees in Canada. I mean, this is ridiculous. You can imagine we know what that's doing to people. A lot of people are dying. But what about all the animals? What about all the plants? Fires are coming. This is just the latest example of climate change being with us now. So I don't think we need to talk about fighting climate change anymore. We really need to talk about coping with its presence with us, the impacts that it's going to have on our life. And I think right now we're pretty unprepared for it. We're very unprepared for it. And there's been so much talk about whether it exists, whether it's a hoax or not. And meanwhile, it's been creeping up with a cricket bat coming around to give us a good slap around the back of the head. And that's what's happening now. So we look at that and we think, so what are we going to do? And many of us, well, for many, many years, decades really, have been looking to the governments of the world to support us and to get us out of the mess. They've been going to every 6 months, there's one of these COP meetings somewhere in the world. Everyone flies in. Not Greta, she took a boat. Got a lot of criticism for that, but nonetheless, she was there and trying to inspire people. People fly in, they talk about things, and not much happens. We did have in 2015 in Paris, we had the Paris Agreement, which was terrific, but a bit too late. Like we really should have been taking action 30, 40, 50 years ago. But anyway, better late than never. But one of the problems with the Paris Agreement is that the commitments were to be made. The governments of the world signed on and made a commitment that we should try and keep our climate change below 1.5 degrees, which is terrific. But guess what? We're almost there. And we need to keep carbon below 450 parts per million in the atmosphere to avoid a catastrophe. Well, guess what? I think we're up to about 418 and it's rising very, very quickly. The last 7 years have been the hottest years on record. And in fact, going back further, the last 20 years, of those last 20 years, 19 of them have been the hottest on record. So climate change is here, and it's, every time something happens, it's like, I saw it in the BBC today, can what's happening in Canada be linked to climate change? It's like, well, what else is going on? I don't know. Shouldn't we be cautious about it and take the precautionary principle and saying, well, all the scientists have been telling us for a very, very long time that this was going to unfold, this was going to happen. Guess what? It's now happening. Here in Europe, our summer is having a topsy-turvy oscillation of pretty cold weather, lots of wet weather, not very warm weather. Over in Canada, having these temperatures that are very high. We've had heat waves here in Europe as well. The weather's all over the place. Who hasn't heard a scientist tell us over the last 20 years that this is what climate change looks like? Right, it's here. So we've been waiting for governments to sort this out for us. And guess what? That hasn't really worked. So what are we going to do? That's the question that I keep coming back to. And this is why I started My Carbon Zero. And I like to talk about the art of the possible. So many times when we hear about big problems like climate change, like poverty, like deforestation, we get sort of disempowered. There's nothing much we can do about it. We need someone else to fix this problem for us. We'll just carry on. We'll just wait for someone to tell us what we should do. And that just doesn't work. We quite clearly, here we are in a climate changed world and waiting for someone else to fix this problem for us hasn't really got us where we need to be. And so let's come back to this question of the art of the possible. What can we do? What is possible? I was just having a great chat with a colleague of mine running a fantastic business, helping artisanal furniture makers find access to markets. And we were talking about what he could do. Well, he can look at travel to go and see his customers. He can cut that down significantly. He can look at his packaging. He can look at all sorts of aspects of his business to take action. And then someone will turn around and say, oh, that's not good enough. And it does seem to me to be, at the moment, a race to see who can come up with the biggest, boldest number that they're going to invest in some project somewhere in the world to save us all from climate change. And yet mostly nothing happens. So I think what we've got to be focusing on here is actually taking action. Like, we've got to do something. And what we've done at My Carbon Zero, and it's come from many years of me travelling around the world, putting carbon up into the atmosphere, but really understanding what happens out in the world when we tell people what they should do. You should do this, or you shouldn't do that. It doesn't really help. My experience is that it pushes people away. If we're going to find a way of living with climate change, and that doesn't mean killing each other as we struggle for resources, we've got to have a lot more compassion in the way we approach ourselves, each other, and the more than human world, all the other species. Imagine the animals and plants that are suffering in Canada and the northwest of the US right now under those temperatures. We've got to start thinking more broadly. And we've got to start celebrating. We've got to start inspiring people to take small actions. What is it? From small acorns to large oak trees grow. The hardest step, or something, whatever it is, on a 1,000-step journey is the first. Let's celebrate and let's try and inspire and pump people's tyres up to get them out there into the world doing something. And that's what we're doing at My Carbon Zero. We're trying to ask people to reduce their own emissions. And you can do that by travelling less. You can do that by having less food waste. You can do that by eating less meat. You can do that by using less energy, or trying to get solar panels and things like this. We can do a lot to reduce our emissions just by cutting meat from your diet. You can cut your annual emissions by 70%. This is a huge contribution. But of course, not everyone wants to cut meat from their diet. And I think some in the vegan and vegetarian community, the climate change community, have pushed people away from taking even modest steps in that direction by shouting at them. If I'm eating 5 meals of meat per week and next week I eat 4, that's a 20% reduction of my carbon footprint. Wouldn't it be great if the whole world did that? And then because that felt good, why not take it down to 3? And eventually 2. And maybe in time, 3 or 4 times a month. These are the journeys that people take. And I believe we can inspire people to do that by lifting them up and celebrating even their small actions. And so in My Carbon Zero, we talk about R1, reduce your own emissions, and find ways of inspiring people to do that. And we also talk about helping other people reduce emissions, reducing emissions elsewhere. We call that R2, R for reduce. 2, R1 is reduce my emissions. R2 is help other people reduce their own emissions. Okay, so one of the great ways you can do that, for example, is to fund girls' education in the developing world. Because if you help those young girls get educated, they can get jobs. They can control whether they have babies or not a lot stronger if they are in control of their lives. And education helps them do that. And I think this is really important. So funding girls' education in the developing world is helping them to reduce their emissions. And the less babies that are had in the world, the less emissions there'll be. There are other ways, helping people reduce their food waste. There's all sorts of things we can do to help others reduce their own emissions. That's R2. And R3, the third action that we try and inspire people to take, is to invest in projects that remove carbon from the atmosphere. This is where tree planting comes in, but it's pretty long-term tree planting. But it's good. We need trees. And of course, one of the great things about tree planting is that it also creates habitat for biodiversity, where often that habitat has been lost for generations. So planting trees is great. But you can also get carbon in soils through, for example, better agricultural practices. And at My Carbon Zero, we're supporting a project in Cambodia that's doing just that. Another way is through the built environment. Let's lock carbon away in buildings. There's a terrific project we've just started supporting in Italy called Rice House, where they take rice husk and rice straw that would otherwise just rot or be burnt and go back up into the atmosphere. So Rice House is really a circular economy project where they take the rice husk, they take the rice straw, they make it into building materials, and it gets locked away in buildings. Now that takes that carbon out of the atmosphere, but what it also does is hugely improves the thermo efficiency of these buildings, reducing energy costs for heating and cooling. We can do these things. There's technology that helps us do it. And it's pretty simple. Putting rice husk and rice straw in panels. Not rocket science. The art of the possible. There's other projects too. Mangrove projects, seagrass projects. We call these blue carbon projects. Huge amounts of carbon stored there. Restoring mangroves around the world that have been devastated, often for things like shrimp farming. Next time you sit down and have a meal of shrimp from Vietnam or one of these places that have long destroyed their mangrove forests, just think about what you've done in terms of your carbon footprint. Okay, now this is not to blame or shame, right? We're staying away from that. But at the same time, let's understand that there are no heroes in this equation. We all can do something, and that's why we call it My Carbon Zero. What can I do? So that's where R3 comes in. Let's invest in projects that remove carbon from the atmosphere. We can do it. On My Carbon Zero project website, we've got a whole load of projects that are doing exactly that, and you can invest in them. But when I say invest, your return on investment is not to be measured in dollars and cents. It's to be measured in your work to take carbon out of the atmosphere and draw down carbon so that parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere doesn't go up as fast. And actually, imagine if we had millions of people doing this, just how much we could take it down. Right? So that's the ambition of My Carbon Zero. That's where we want to get to. But first we must plant that acorn. We must take that first step. And then we can inspire people. And that's the last action that we talk about in My Carbon Zero. R1, reduce your emissions. R2, reduce emissions elsewhere. R3, remove carbon from the atmosphere. And I, inspire other people to take that journey with you. Tell people about it. Don't shame them. That's not going to get us anywhere. Don't tell them what they should do. Just tell them about what you're doing. And they'll say, that's brilliant. I'd like to try that. We'll go to the website, sign up. You can. Take your own steps. So I think that when we think about what we can do about any problem, be it climate change, be it poverty, race relations, gender issues, let's think about the art of the possible. Let's not shame people. That doesn't mean that everyone's doing the right thing. Clearly they're not, otherwise we wouldn't have the problem. But let's talk in positive terms about what we can do. Let's celebrate the first small step that one person takes. Let's pump up their tyres so they take a second one and then a third. And those small steps become one large step or one medium-sized step. And then two medium-sized steps become one large step, and away we go. This is how we change. Not by shaming people, not by blaming people, not by pointing fingers, not by yelling. We change by inspiration, by setting people free, by liberating their own innovation, their own dreaming path to doing something good in the world. Because ultimately, I believe, the people are good. They do want to do something. So the question I guess I have for everybody is, what can you do? What can you do on this journey to make the world a better place? I talk about climate change and My Carbon Zero. That's just for climate change, but that's a pretty big one. If we don't grapple with that, we really are in deep poo. In fact, we're in deep poo right now. So now it's about getting all of our shoulders to the wheel and trying to do something about that. But there are other problems that are plaguing the world. And if we all perhaps calm down a little bit, don't get so angry about them, just start thinking, what can I do? What might I do that would be inspiring for other people? And take that first step. We might just get there. Thanks for listening.